I have an idea for a podcast, let's say that I want to highlight the storytelling aspects of my favorite songs. Now, there are podcasts out there like Song Exploder that will take a really deep dive into the music theory and all of the elements of the show. But for this idea, I actually just want to listen to the lyrics and the progression of the story to highlight what makes this song a hit and how it's a good story. So I'm going to put a prompt like that into ChatGPT. Okay, so I'm starting a podcast where I want to highlight the intersection of storytelling and music by taking popular songs and breaking down the narrative of the lyrics. I'm having trouble coming up with names for a show like this. Can you give me 10 examples of names for this podcast? Okay, so here are some ideas: Lyric Chronicles, Unraveling Song Stories, Tune Tales, Stories Behind the Songs, Melody Mysteries, Songcraft, Spotlight, Lyrical Lore, Narrative Notes, Song Stories Unplugged, Musical Narratives Exposed. That's a pretty good one. Lyric Explorers, Sounds and Stories, Unveiling Song Narratives. Now, one of our biggest goals here is to make the title of the show clear for people who are perusing apps and might want to have a listen. Something like music storytelling is okay, but we want to get a little deeper into this. So something like Melody Mysteries decoding song narratives is pretty good, except I don't know how many people would be searching for the terms melody mysteries or decoding song narratives. So Tune Tales, stories behind the songs, or narrative notes, musical narratives exposed. Those are all pretty good. Lyric Explorers, these are all good. They're dancing around what I'm trying to go for. So I'm just going to say I really like number 2. Can you give me more examples based on that one? Okay, they're all okay. I think the first one is probably the best. After some deliberation, I think this is the best name. So I'm going to take narrative notes. Let's go with this name. And we want to make sure that it's not taken. So how do we determine if this is a good name that we can use? Let's take it and we'll search in 3 places. We'll search in podcastindex.org, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Those 3 should have pretty good coverage of all of the podcasts that are out there. So let's start with Podcast Index first. That's over at podcastindex.org. I'll type in narrative notes. No results for your search. And just to make sure, I'm going to search my show. And yes, we have some results for that. So we are getting, positive results from the terms that we are searching here. We're not just getting blank for everything. Okay, so narrative notes doesn't exist in Podcast Index. Narrative notes. Okay, so we have narrative nostalgic notes. So that's not a podcast, though. You need to beware when you're searching in Spotify because you'll get music and podcasts in the same results. So let's go to podcasts and shows. You've got Taylor's Notes, Rot Grind, The Dead Letter Office. So it looks like, no, we don't have something here. And so now let's actually look at Apple Podcasts. So we'll go to our search bar here. And no, it looks like on first blush, through all of these directories, our name is safe. I will do stories within songs as well, just to make sure, one of the reasons that we want to pick a good name is to limit the competition while still telling people what the podcast is about. So maybe people are searching for stories within songs or stories in songs or storytelling in songs. So stories in songs, that looks like it is a podcast, a very recent podcast. So we do have maybe some competition. Every song is a story set to music. So there is another podcast out here doing that. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It just means that we should know kind of what we're up against and how many other songs there are. So, or how many other podcasts there are. So stories about songs, So there is some similar podcasts. Again, we shouldn't be deterred by that. We just want to make sure that we are differentiating our show. Also, it's worth pointing out, if we go back to Podcast Index, stories, it looks like Stories in Songs only exists on Spotify. So this is a show. It's a short form show, it looks like, but it looks like our show is going to be quite different from this and is certainly not everywhere. So there we go. Let's go with Narrative Notes, the stories within songs. I think we have a really good name here.